The concept of divinity often evokes images of omnipotence, invulnerability, and immortality, particularly within the framework of monotheistic traditions. However, the gods of ancient polytheistic pantheons often defied these expectations. In many ancient cultures, deities were not infallible or immune to suffering. They could be angered, harmed, and even killed. Among these gods, Dumuzid, a Mesopotamian deity, stands out for his cyclical deaths and resurrections, which mirrored the changing seasons and held profound significance for his worshippers. This article delves into the mythology of Dumuzid, exploring his roles, his relationships, and the cultural impact of his recurring demise. Dumuzid, also known as Tammuz in later Akkadian traditions, was a multifaceted deity whose influence spanned agriculture, shepherding, and the cyclical nature of life and death. Often referred to as the god of shepherds, Dumuzid was closely associated with pastoral life and the fertility of the land. His connection to agriculture made him a vital figure in Mesopotamian society, where the success of crops and livestock directly impacted survival. Dumuzid's origins are complex, reflecting the layered nature of Mesopotamian mythology. He was believed to have been a historical figure, the fifth antediluvian king of the Sumerian city of Bad Tabira, known as the Fortress of Smiths. Additionally, he was associated with the ancient city of Uruk, where he was revered as a ruler and consort to the goddess Inana. These dual identities, historical king and divine shepherd, highlight Dumuzid's integration into both the mortal and divine realms. As an agricultural deity, Dumuzid was seen as a benevolent figure who blessed humanity with abundant crops, trees, and flowers. His presence was believed to ensure the fertility of the land, particularly during the spring season. However, Dumuzid's influence was not limited to agriculture. He was also associated with the concept of change, particularly the transition between seasons. This association would later become central to his mythology, as his cyclical deaths and resurrections came to symbolize the eternal cycle of life, death, and rebirth. One of the most striking aspects of Dumuzid's mythology is his recurring death, which was deeply intertwined with the agricultural calendar. The Mesopotamians, lacking modern scientific knowledge, turned to myth to explain the natural world. The fertile spring, when crops flourished, was attributed to Dumuzid's presence. Conversely, the barren summer, when the land dried up, was seen as a result of his absence. Every summer, the people of Sumer mourned Dumuzid's death with elaborate rituals and public displays of grief. This period of mourning, known as Tammuz in later Babylonian tradition, lasted an entire month. Women, in particular, played a prominent role in these rituals, weeping openly in the streets to lament the loss of their god. This collective grief was not only a religious observance, but also a reflection of the people's dependence on the land's fertility for their survival. The mourning period ended with the arrival of autumn, when the land became fertile once more. This resurgence was seen as Dumuzid's return from the underworld, marking the beginning of a new cycle of life. For the Mesopotamians, Dumuzid's death and resurrection were not merely symbolic, they were essential to the continuation of life itself. His cyclical journey mirrored the natural world, offering a sense of stability and predictability in an otherwise unpredictable environment. Dumuzid's mythology is deeply intertwined with that of Inana, the goddess of love, fertility, and war. Their relationship, as depicted in various Sumerian texts, is both passionate and fraught with tension. One of the most famous accounts of their courtship is found in the courtship of Inana and Dumuzid, where Dumuzid, a shepherd, competes with a farmer named Enkimdu for Inanna's hand in marriage. Despite her initial preference for Enkimdu, Inanna ultimately chooses Dumuzid, setting the stage for their tumultuous union. The dynamics of their relationship take a darker turn in the epic of Inanna's descent into the underworld. In this narrative, Inanna travels to the underworld, where she is killed by her sister, Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld. Through the intervention of other gods, Inanna is resurrected, but must find a substitute to take her place in the underworld. Upon her return, she finds Dumuzid seated on her throne, seemingly indifferent to her absence. Enraged, Inanna chooses Dumuzid as her replacement, condemning him to the underworld. This story offers a more nuanced portrayal of Dumuzid, revealing him as a flawed and self-serving figure. His failure to mourn Inanna's death and his apparent enjoyment of her throne suggest a lack of loyalty and empathy. However, this narrative also serves to explain Dumuzid's cyclical death, linking it to the changing seasons and the agricultural cycle. Dumuzid's death is depicted in various ways across different texts, reflecting the fluid nature of Mesopotamian mythology. In the dream of Dumuzid, Dumuzid is pursued by demons who capture his sister, Inana, in an attempt to locate him. Despite Inana's loyalty and refusal to betray her brother, Dumuzid is eventually found and taken to the underworld. This version of the story portrays Dumuzid as cowardly, prioritizing his own safety over his sister's well-being. Another account, found in the damaged text Inana and Bilulu, describes Dumuzid's murder at the hands of a female bandit named Bilulu. Although the details of this story are unclear due to the text's fragmentary state, it is evident that Inana seeks revenge for Dumuzid's death, transforming Bilulu into a water skin used in his funeral rites. In the most bitter cry, Dumuzid is chased by demons and ultimately drowns in a river, symbolizing his descent into the underworld. These varied accounts highlight the inevitability of Dumuzid's death, regardless of the circumstances. Each version reinforces the idea that Dumuzid's demise is an essential part of the natural order, ensuring the continuation of the agricultural cycle. Despite the darker aspects of his mythology, Dumuzid's story ultimately ends on a note of redemption. In the return of Dumuzid, Inana and Inana journey to the underworld to retrieve Dumuzid. Recognizing the need for balance, they decree that Dumuzid will spend half the year in the underworld with Inana and the other half in the heavens with Inana. This compromise allows Dumuzid to fulfill his role as a symbol of cyclical renewal while also addressing his past misdeeds. This narrative not only provides a satisfying resolution to Dumuzid's story, but also reinforces the themes of balance and continuity that are central to Mesopotamian cosmology. Dumuzid's annual journey between the underworld and the heavens mirrors the eternal cycle of the seasons, offering hope and reassurance to his worshippers. Dumuzid's influence extended far beyond the borders of ancient Mesopotamia. His worship persisted well into the first millennium CE, long after the decline of Mesopotamian civilization. The rituals associated with his death and resurrection were adopted by neighboring cultures, including the Babylonians and Assyrians, who incorporated them into their own religious practices. Dumuzid's legacy is also evident in later religious traditions. In the Hebrew Bible, the prophet Ezekiel condemns the women who mourn Tammuz outside the temple in Jerusalem, highlighting the enduring impact of Dumuzid's mythology. This reference underscores the cultural significance of Dumuzid's story, which continued to resonate with people long after the decline of Mesopotamian civilization. Dumuzid's mythology offers a fascinating glimpse into the worldview of ancient Mesopotamia. As a god of shepherds, agriculture, and the seasons, Dumuzid embodied the interconnectedness of life, death, and rebirth. His cyclical deaths and resurrections served as a powerful metaphor for the natural world, providing his worshippers with a sense of order and continuity in an often unpredictable environment. Despite his flaws, Dumuzid remains a compelling figure whose story continues to captivate and inspire. His enduring legacy is a testament to the power of myth to convey profound truths about the human experience and the world we inhabit. Through Dumuzid, the ancient Mesopotamians found meaning in the cycles of nature, celebrating the eternal dance of life and death that sustains us all. To fully appreciate Dumuzid's significance, it is essential to understand the broader context of Mesopotamian society. Mesopotamia, often referred to as the cradle of civilization, was located between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in what is now modern-day Iraq. This region was home to some of the earliest known human civilizations, including the Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians. Agriculture was the backbone of Mesopotamian society, and the success of crops and livestock was crucial for survival. The Mesopotamians relied heavily on the natural world, and their religious beliefs were deeply intertwined with the cycles of nature. Dumuzid, as a god of agriculture and shepherding, played a vital role in this context. His mythology provided a framework for understanding the changing seasons and the cyclical nature of life and death. The rituals associated with Dumuzid's death and resurrection were not merely religious observances, They were also communal events that reinforced social cohesion. The public mourning of Dumuzid's death brought people together, fostering a sense of shared identity and purpose. Similarly, the celebration of his return marked a time of renewal and hope, as the community looked forward to the abundance of the coming season. Dumuzid's recurring deaths challenged the conventional notion of divinity as immortal and invulnerable. In many ways, Dumuzid's mortality sets him apart from other gods, making him a more relatable and human-like figure. His vulnerability and fallibility reflect the struggles and uncertainties of human life, offering a more nuanced understanding of the divine. This concept of divine mortality is not unique to Dumuzid. Many ancient cultures had gods who experienced death and rebirth, often in connection with the cycles of nature. For example, the Egyptian god Osiris, who was killed and resurrected, shares similarities with Dumuzid. These myths reflect a universal human desire to make sense of the natural world and to find meaning in the cycles of life and death. Dumuzid's mythology had a lasting impact on later cultures and religious traditions. The rituals associated with his death and resurrection were adopted by neighboring civilizations, including the Babylonians and Assyrians. The Babylonian version of Dumuzid, known as Tammuz, became particularly prominent, and his worship continued well into the first millennium CE. The influence of Dumuzid's mythology can also be seen in later religious traditions. In the Hebrew Bible, the prophet Ezekiel condemns the women who mourn Tammuz outside the temple in Jerusalem, highlighting the enduring impact of Dumuzid's story. This reference underscores the cultural significance of Dumuzid's mythology, which continued to resonate with people long after the decline of Mesopotamian civilization. Dumuzid's mythology offers a fascinating glimpse into the worldview of ancient Mesopotamia. As a god of shepherds, agriculture, and the seasons, Dumuzid embodied the interconnectedness of life, death, and rebirth. His cyclical deaths and resurrections served as a powerful metaphor for the natural world, providing his worshippers with a sense of order and continuity in an often unpredictable environment. Despite his flaws, Dumuzid remains a compelling figure, whose story continues to captivate and inspire. His enduring legacy is a testament to the power of myth to convey profound truths about the human experience and the world we inhabit. Through Dumuzid, the ancient Mesopotamians found meaning in the cycles of nature, celebrating the eternal dance of life and death that sustains us all.